there are a few things that get me as pumped up as seeing a room full of students that are hungry for Jesus. And so y'all are bringing it, all right? And I am honored to get to be a part of it and just spend an evening with you guys. And so first I want to tell you a little story, okay? A little story about a girl named Gabi. But not just any Gabi, me Gabi, all right? We're not going to talk third person, okay? But I'm going to take you back to my junior year of high school, okay? I had a crush on number 5 on the basketball team, y'all. Ooh. Mess with me. But he was number 5 on the court, but number 1 in my heart. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And see, number 5 and I, we were friends. We had history together. Like literally history class, okay? Like, we had history class together. But we were cool. I was chill. He had no idea. But it just so happened that one of his basketball games fell on the night of Valentine's Day. And the night that I decided that number 5 was going to be mine, all right? And so I was like, I'm going to make my power move. And so my friends and I, we get together. We're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we come up with the idea that, obviously, I needed to declare my love through a T-shirt, okay? So after school, we get together. We get the pink T-shirt. We get the glitter sparkles. They're hyping me up this whole time, all right? And I'm like, I'm about to fall in love. Like, this is going to be so amazing. I can't wait for this, all right? And all night, I'm hyped up. I'm ready to go. And then the time of the basketball game actually gets there. And we roll up in the parking lot, and I'm zipping up my jacket to walk inside, and I realize, this is a terrible idea. Like, terrible. I'm from a small town, and so it's not just like my friends are there, a few people. Like, the whole town is there. So I'm about to go make a fool of myself in front of everyone. But too many people knew about that, at this point, and so my pride is on the line. So it's like, I'm all in. Like, I gotta do this. But as I'm walking in, I'm like, maybe I should start, like, vomiting or, like, pull something to get me out of doing this. So we get in there. We're sitting in the student section. The game's going on, all this. My friends are still like, this is going to be so incredible. And I'm, like, shaking, like, yes, I can't wait. I love this. And then the time arrives. And number 5 is standing on the free throw line. And I'm directly under the basket. Y'all already know. And I unzipped my jacket to reveal a pink, sparkly T-shirt that said, "Be mine, number 5." I know, so sweet, so pure. And number 5 and I, we make eye contact, and I look like bewildered, and he's like, what in the world? He shoots his 2 free throws and then goes on about the game, all right? Goes on. And we have literally never talked about it again. Like, we just carried on with our lives and just completely ignored that I declared my love for him at a basketball game, in the middle of a game, in front of everyone. And so here's the deal. I've never gotten any closure from this. And it just so happens, ladies and gentlemen, that number 5, the love that I thought was of my life, lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which I don't know if you know this, but it's like 40 minutes away. And so I thought, what better time to get some closure than at MOVE on a Wednesday night? And so I need you all to help me welcome number 5. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. But you know what? The day will come. I'm not lying. He does live near here. The day will come. I know. I will. I will let you know when it happens. I know. I'm sorry. I need the closure too. I'm hurt just as much as you. All right? Remember, I'm the one that needed it. But we'll work on that. So this is a ridiculous story. But I want to take you back to the night after the basketball game. Just made a fool of myself. I had to go home and think about what I just did all night long. And my thoughts spiraled. Like, I was like, I'm going to show up to school tomorrow, and nobody is going to want to talk to me ever again. And, like, I'm going to have to move out of here because I'm just going to be known as the embarrassing girl that thought she had Riz and was, like, making a move at a basketball game. Like, So all night, I'm not sleeping, whatever. The next day shows up. I get to school. And the craziest thing, my friends were still my friends. Like, everybody else just pretended it happened too. They're like, oh, we'll move on, girl. You good? You're good. We're good. Have the best of us. But my life went on. And maybe this is a ridiculous example of this, but how often when we are in the middle of something so embarrassing, or maybe just a really difficult situation, maybe something that just is heartbreaking, do we get to a place that we just think we're all alone in it? And we just sit there with ourselves and think over and over again, like, how am I going to get out of this? Who do I have to count on but myself? But some encouragement for you is that you're not alone in feeling alone. As you look across this room, every single one of us, I would guarantee, has had a moment where we feel like it is just us. I am in the valley alone. And if that's not enough encouragement for you, we can actually look throughout Scripture and see time and time again where Jesus' people are walking through something difficult, maybe like actual physical storms, and they question, what in the world, how am I going to get out of this? This is all on me. And we're actually going to be looking at a book in the Bible. We're going to be looking at Mark and the story of Jesus, his disciples, and this crazy storm that they end up in. But before we get there, I'm going to set the stage of like what's been going on, okay? So Jesus and his disciples, they're just walking around. They're chilling, like all these guys, like going through. Jesus is teaching. He's preaching. He's performing miracles. The disciples are like, yeah, I'm a part of this. They're like just going around, doing all this incredible stuff. Jesus is teaching some powerful stories of what does it mean to have a deep-rooted faith. His disciples are right beside him. And then that's where we pick up here in Mark chapter 4. And I'm going to read this to us, but what I want you to do is to view yourself as a disciple that's going into the boat with him. Not like this is just a story, but like how you would be acting if you're in the boat with Jesus going through a storm. Okay? So here we go. Mark chapter 4, picking up in verse 35. That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind them, they took him along just as he was, in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." In your life, you're going to go through storms. And I'm not just talking about like the wind and the waves and all the crazy stuff. Like, I'm from Oklahoma. I get all that. Like, we're going to experience those. But tonight, I want us to lean into the kind of storms that make you question, how did I end up here? And how am I ever going to make it onto the other side? Maybe you're in the middle of a storm and it's your friend talked bad behind you, bad about you. Yikes. Bad about you behind your back, and you feel betrayed. Maybe it's you feel like you can't measure up because you didn't make the starting spot on the team. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one or the separation of your parents. Maybe it's the insecurity that overplays again and again in your mind, and nobody knows about it but you. Every single one of us has experienced, maybe are currently experiencing, or will experience storms in our life. And when we find ourselves in situations like these, it can be like, what do I do? I'm alone. I have no one to turn to. And we can beat ourselves up over that. Of like, it's just me, and I can't go back to God because like I doubted him. But look at this story. The disciples had the actual physical Jesus in the boat with them. Like, couldn't be closer to him. And still they question, God, do you even care that we're about to drown out here? Do you even see that? And in my own life, I've questioned that. In this story, Jesus is asleep in the bottom of the boat. Jesus, do you even care what's going on out here? Jesus, do you even care about my parents' divorce? Jesus, do you even care that I have to watch my dad lie in a hospital bed? Jesus, do you even care about my mom's cancer diagnosis? This is too much. And God, do you even see me struggling out here with this anxiety and depression that is weighing me down every single day? And it feels like Jesus is sleeping in the bottom of the boat. And maybe you have been crying out, God, where are you? Help me. And you feel like he's not answering. But in the next verse, it says, Jesus got up, he rebuked the wind and the waves. He said, quiet, be still. And I'm here to tell you that the same God that can quiet the storm in the sea can quiet the storm in your heart. The same God that quiets the storm in the sea can quiet the storm that's going on in your life. The same God that did that is the same God that's here now, that can speak a word and bring healing, that can speak a word and put your mind at ease, that gives you a peace that you can never understand. The same God then is the same God now. And he's with you in your boat. And maybe you're thinking, okay, yeah, that's great. But I did cry out to Jesus. And I was like, hey, where you at? I'm struggling. And he didn't do anything. And something I don't think anybody really prepared me for as like a follower of Jesus is like, I thought, okay, I'm going to give my life to Christ. And like life is going to be so much easier. Like, it's not my control, God. Like, you got this. But man, it didn't. And maybe you have been doing all the right things. You show up to church every single week. You are serving. You're doing all the things. You're here at MOVE, and you're saying, I'm doing what God has called me to do. And still, I'm struggling. Still, I'm in the middle of a storm. I'm in the middle of the valley. And think about the disciples. Jesus asked them to go out into the sea. They were being obedient, and still Jesus sent them into the middle of it. But sometimes Jesus will send you through it so you can see what's on the other side, because there's something greater that you can't even imagine. And sometimes he sent you into a storm, not for discipline, but for discipleship. The circumstances that you're walking through right now, or that you have been through, they aren't put to waste. And I wish I could tell you why bad things happen. I do. I don't have that level of whatever going on. I wish I knew. That's going to be one of my questions I ask when I get to heaven someday. But he never, ever promised that life would be easy. But he did say we would never be alone. He did say he would walk with us through the darkest of valley, and he would be there to comfort us. He's not going to be waiting on the other side saying, hey, you got it. You're doing great. You're almost there. No, he's in the middle of the trenches with us. He's in the boat with us. And in verse 40, it goes on to say, he said to his disciple, why are you so afraid? And when I used to read this, I would think, Jesus got to be really annoyed. Like, they've literally been going through life with him, seeing him do all this stuff, and still they doubted that he was going to do what he said he was going to do, which was take them to the other side. But then, when you look back, it says Jesus rebuked the wind and the waves. It doesn't say he rebuked his disciples. In fact, I think he was looking at his disciples that were afraid, that thought, I don't know if I have what it takes to make it to the other side. And he looked at them and said, why are you so afraid? He looked at them with compassion, seeing his child, and wanting them to know who he was and what he was going to do in and through them. That he was who he said he was. He was going to do what he said he was going to do. And maybe you have been doubting God. Maybe you've been questioning him because like, hey, God, you haven't been answering. Or what is the point in asking? Because I know you're not going to do it. And you've been too afraid to go back to God because you're ashamed of what you've been or the choices you made or the questions you've asked. But he just says, come to me. Come to me just as you are. You don't have to be held back by any questions you ask. In fact, when you doubt, it makes your faith deeper because you find out who God really is and what he's going to do through you in those darkest moments. And when he was in the boat with the disciples, he didn't like yell, hey, like, why are you afraid? He didn't have to, because he was in the boat with them. And I would love, personally, maybe you can relate with me, maybe not, I'll be alone here, if God would like yell at me sometimes, like, hey girl, you got this. You're almost there. You're trucking along. But I've never had that happen. Because you see, our God, he could have just shouted about his love from heaven, but no, he sent his son Jesus to earth to walk through it with us. And he doesn't have to shout because he is close. He is a whisper away. And sometimes we let the world drown out what God is saying to us. Maybe it's what people are saying to you. Maybe it's lies that you've believed, labels that have been put on yourself. Maybe it's what you say about yourself. You let your anxiety and all these intrusive thoughts control who God is. And his voice is just whispering in the background like, I'm here when you need me. Why are you so afraid? He is in the boat with you. And the way I see it is when we go through these storms, we have three options, okay? We can give up, we can act up, or we can look up. Let me hear you say give up. Say give up. So you could look at the storm and say, it's not worth this. I'm going to just turn around. Maybe it's an addiction you've been struggling with, and you said, I'm way too far gone to ever turn away from that. Maybe it's the diagnosis of a family member or yourself that they say there's no cure. And so you're like, why would I pray about that? There can't be anything done. So we just give up and leave it and call it what it was. We can give up. We can act up. Let me hear you say act up. I'll admit to you all that I am a recovering people pleaser. Okay? I'm working on it. And I love to act like I have it all together all the time. For a long time, I viewed anytime I needed help, anytime I had emotion, as a weakness. But I told you that for a long time, I struggled with anxiety and depression that nobody knew about because I was really good at pretending like everything was okay. But all through that time, I was putting on the good face, I was making the good grades, I was involved in all the sports, I was posting like a Bible verse to my story, I was going to church. But through all those posts, and every time I showed up to church, I can tell you I never actually took it to God. I acted like it was all on me. I acted like I had it all together, that I was trusting, but really I was just trusting myself and letting myself down. We can give up, we can act up, or we can look up. In this story, we've been talking a lot about the storm and the disciples. But really, the story is not really about any of those things. The main point, anyway. The main point is who was in the boat with them. And I'm here to remind you that whatever you're walking through, your God is bigger than that. The waves may be so high that you can't see how you'll make it to the other side, but our God is bigger. And he has given you the power and love and a sound mind, and you have that at your fingertips. But what does that take? What does that require of us? Well, it requires us to allow Jesus to be in the boat with us. Because you see, Jesus was here on earth. God sent him here on earth so that we could see what it looks like to live a perfect and a sinless life. And this man that was doing all these miracles, that was doing all these good things, that was walking what God called him to do, he went on to die on a cross that he didn't deserve. He carried the weight of our sin, of our shame, and our guilt so that you and I have the opportunity to invite Jesus in the boat. So that you have to be reminded that you are never alone. Even in the darkest valleys, he is with you. And all that takes of us is to receive it. He wants to be in there with you. He doesn't want you to be on the other side cheering you on. He wants to walk through it with you, but will you allow him to do that? It requires us to let him in the boat. And he promises to be with us always. And this is good news. And good news, I don't know about you, but it's meant to be shared. And so why were Jesus and his disciples even going to the other side? They were in this great place. Jesus had all these people following him. He was doing great things. People were excited to be around him. So something great must have been on the other side, because the truth is Jesus knew that storm was coming. But he still sent them through. And the crazy thing, that what was on the other side was a place that they weren't wanted. Was struggles, was helping people that didn't know they needed it. But good news is meant to be shared. And it's one thing for us to hear about who Jesus is, but it's a different thing for us to experience it in our heart for ourselves. And the disciples, they'd been hearing who Jesus was. They'd been walking with him, seeing all the good things he's done, but then they go through the storm and they experience it firsthand, that he is who he says he is. And I love MOVE. I love this week, and I love seeing how on fire you guys are for Jesus. But we aren't meant to stay here in the comfort. Because the truth is, this week is going to end, and you're going to go home. And the storms that were waiting for you are still going to be there. But the thing that's different is that you have a new hope. You know who your firm foundation is. You know that you don't have to carry on this life on your own. All the guilt and the shame and the sin that's been holding you back doesn't have a place with you anymore. Because I can guarantee you, whatever you're walking through, whatever you've been through, there's something greater for you on the other side. And I can say that because I'm here today. I have no business being here. But our God is so good that it doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done, or what's been done to you. He says you are new, that he loves you, that you are worthy and chosen. And maybe life doesn't come all easy and everything work together, but he is with you every single step of the way. And that is the good news that we get to go back and share. That is the good news that we get to continue this week and experience. And I cannot wait to see what God continues to do through you as you walk through these storms, as you walk through these trials of what is to come your way. I'd love everyone to bow your heads and close your eyes. And right now, I just want to pray over anybody that maybe is in the middle of a storm right now. Or you're questioning, God, where are you? Where have you been? Don't you see what's going on here? Don't you see this storm? Don't you see the size of these waves? The same God that can calm the sea can calm the storm in your heart, can calm the storm in your mind. But will you let him in the boat? So Heavenly Father, I thank you for this room full of world changers. God, I thank you for what you've already done in and through them this week and what you continue to do. God, I pray over anyone that is struggling, anyone that is wondering, God, where are you? That even this moment that they feel your presence. God, that they feel your peace.